Hi, I'm Neil Shawn and welcome to one of my all-time favourite theatres. It's the Prince of Wales in the heart of London's Leicester Square. So join me as we take a look at some of the stars, the shows and the secrets of this wonderful Delfont Mackintosh West End theatre. Now, one of the first stars that we're going to meet that was a huge success, not just here at the Prince of Wales, but virtually every major theatre in the UK, is the one and only Dame Gracie Fields, of course, the Queen of Rochdale. Now, it's hard to believe just how big a star Gracie was, but as you'll see from this particular picture, she really did have a hand in the success of what became the Prince of Wales Theatre, quite literally. Take a good look at that picture. That's the one and only Dame Gracie Fields up a ladder singing to the workmen on the 17th of June 1937. The star was up on the ladder simply because earlier in the day she'd laid the foundation stone for the brand new Prince of Wales Theatre in Leicester Square in the heart of London, and she was concerned that these workers had actually not met her or indeed heard her, which is a bit radical when you think of the power of Gracie's voice. Gracie herself though knew the power of publicity, and this particular picture made the front pages the very next day. Gracie at this point was at the top of her profession. She'd already conquered the recording industry, the movie industry, and of course was the biggest seller of sheet music alongside George Formby. She was at this point also about to become an even bigger star in Hollywood, but movies were never really her sort of thing. She admitted she much preferred performing in front of a live audience, and that's why she remains one of the very best variety artists that Britain has ever seen. The Prince of Wales Theatre is based in Coventry Street, just off Leicester Square. It was established first as a theatre in 1884 and then rebuilt in the famous Art Deco style that we all know and love today in 1937. It was extensively refurbished in 2004 by the one and only Sir Cameron Mackintosh, whose company Delfont Mackintosh currently own the theatre. The theatre itself has played host to many hit shows, but its longest running show was the cult musical Mamma Mia, of course created and made famous by the songs of the brilliant 70s pop group ABBA. Now, the date was the 25th of January 1948 when Hollywood legend and sex symbol Mae West came into town on the Queen Mary at Southampton. She was here to present her own production Diamond Lil at the Prince of Wales Theatre in the heart of London. Tickets were already hot, but by the time Mae arrived with all her publicity machine, it was a sellout and a phenomenal success for her. One of the other ladies in the show was none other than our very own soap opera legend, Noel Gordon, famous for playing Meg Mortimer in Crossroads. Now, I was very lucky to meet Noel at some point in her career, and she told me that Mae was a phenomenal lady, not really much of a gal-on-gal type of person. She said she spent more time with the men. But Noel did tell me this bit of inside news. Apparently, when the show got to Blackpool, Mae didn't like to rise early or do any publicity. So what she did was hire female impersonators as Mae West, and they would go out round the town, maybe on a tram, on the North Pier, in the Tower Ballroom, so that people actually believed they'd spotted the legendary Hollywood sex symbol. Very clever marketing on Mae's part. Now, by the time the play had finished here in London, she'd become incredibly rich because she'd struck a deal which basically meant that she got 90% of the box office. Nonetheless, Mae West at the Prince of Wales Theatre broke all box office records and certainly brought some glamour at the end of a bit of a dark and distressing war period. And for that, we are forever grateful to the one and only Miss Mae West. Now, Benny Hill was and remains a superstar to me, one of the funniest men to emerge out of variety theatre. He got a big break here, but as we find out, Benny was possibly more comfortable, not necessarily on the stage of the Prince of Wales, but more comfortable on a TV screen. Another legendary star is none other than Mr. Benny Hill, who enjoyed great success at the Prince of Wales Theatre in the early 50s. But Benny himself really came into his own with the advent of television, and he admitted this himself. He enjoyed being a variety artist, but what he didn't really enjoy, he said, was if a song or a joke fell flat, he really didn't know how to recover from that, whereas with the magic of television, consequently he could edit, cut it, and make it look better. Now, Benny himself went on to score international success worldwide, thanks to the clutch of TV shows that he made for over 25 years, not just for the BBC, but also Thames Television too. Now, while here in England we may have sadly forgotten Benny's talent because it might not be seen as PC, in America his show still gets shown on syndication worldwide and still pulling huge ratings. Benny himself, of course, was something of a recluse. I was lucky enough to meet him, and he didn't really mix with other people. What he really enjoyed doing was spending time alone watching his 2 television sets and trying to work out exactly what adverts, what shows, etc. he could take to make sure that the public would laugh. He was inventive, clever, and always on the mark. It's such a shame, though, that in today's comedy world, not many people really look back at Benny Hill and realise just what a unique talent he was. Thankfully, though, his shows remain, and we can always see his talent whenever we want to take a quick peek. One of my favourite comedians, the brilliant Miss Hilda Baker. Of course, she knows, you know, and she was always looking for her friend Cynthia. Have you seen her? Well, basically, when Hilda came down to London, some of the people, including Val Parnell and impresario Bernard Delfont, were a little bit concerned that her humour would transfer. But of course, she proved them wrong, and for 2 weeks filled the theatre to great success. Hilda herself went on for many great successes after that, including TV work like Not On Your Nelly, and of course, a hit record with Arthur Mullard, You're the One That I Want. We never truly will forget the wonderful Hilda Baker. Now, the Royal Variety Performance was a big event here in 1963, and normally it was associated with the brilliant, of course, London Palladium. But one of the biggest stars that actually appeared here that year was none other than Hollywood super legend Marlene Dietrich. And as you'll find out further in the film, she was something of an opportunist getting next to the Beatles. But the Beatles actually really created on this spot what we now know as Beatlemania. Lord Delfont decided to book them in to the Royal Variety Show, which was slightly unheard of then to have a pop group in the show. And what was more interesting at this particular point was literally Beatlemania exploded. So much so, they had to go and stay in the hotel next door. And according to a good source, at that particular time, there was a secret door that could get you into the hotel next door. Thus, of course, the fans all crowding out around here, waiting to see their superheroes, didn't, simply because they're already in the hotel. Here are some amazing pictures of the Beatles on stage at the Prince of Wales Theatre alongside another icon, the late great Sir Harry Seacombe. The date is the 4th of November 1963, and the Fab Four from Liverpool were already big stars. Their first single, Love Me Do, had made it to number 17 in the British charts in September of the previous year. In January of 1963, their second single, Please Please Me, topped the NME's independent charts, and in April, From Me to You topped the UK's official charts, followed by She Loves You in August. So by November, Beatlemania had well and truly swept the United Kingdom, and it was a very clever booking by impresario Bernard Delfont. It was also seen as something of a risk because at that point they hadn't really had out-and-out pop stars. A friend of mine, though, who actually worked on the show told me there was quite a few magic moments, not necessarily during rehearsals, that didn't go according to plan. But he told me that whenever the press photographers were invited back in to the Prince of Wales Auditorium, magically Marlene Dietrich, the star of the show alongside Burt Bacharach, would appear, making sure that she got pictured with the hottest thing in town and ensuring actually for the Beatles that they too got some much needed press in the US. You have to remember at that point they hadn't broken through. Also, you can see on stage the super brilliant Mr. Tommy Steele. And what makes me laugh about this particular picture is Tommy's actually on stage clutching a cigarette. Can you imagine that being allowed in today's society? Thankfully though, Tommy gave up the evil weed many years ago. And the only one question remains about these pictures and Tommy is, Why has he not become Sir Tommy Steele yet? Surely he deserves it. What a great entertainer and what a great show this was, pulling in over 21.2 million viewers when it was screened a week later on November the 10th. Surely a royal show many will never forget. So this is the hotel that the Beatles stayed at directly after the 1963 Royal Variety performance in November. And the reason why they picked this hotel really was, well, Brian Epstein's idea. They realised that Beatlemania had exploded, and boy did it show, with 21 million viewers all tuning in predominantly to watch Marlene Dietrich. But more importantly, the British UK teenager wanted to watch the Beatles. And how could they get them out of a very busy theatre? Simple. Put them in the hotel next door. And this is exactly the hotel that the Beatles stayed in. Definitely one if you're a fan of the tour guide of the Beatles to see where they went in that period. Take a look at this. Now here's a star that's possibly almost forgotten to a younger generation. We're talking about the brilliant comedian Syd Field. Syd made the Prince of Wales his own, starring in many hit shows, including Strike a New Note in 1943, Strike It Again in 1944 and Piccadilly Hayride in 1946. He really did have his audiences roaring with laughter, literally falling off their seats, according to one reviewer. And his very famous sidekick was none other than Mr. Jerry Desmond, who would go on to play straight man to another brilliant comedian who enjoyed success at the Prince of Wales, and none other than Sir Norman Wisdom. But Syd himself really couldn't survive much longer. Sadly, we lost him all too soon. And the movies that he left behind apparently don't really give him justice as to what a brilliant comedian he was. In fact, Max Miller said that after him, naturally, Syd was the best live performer going. Now, Syd himself appeared in the Royal Variety performance in November 1945 and was such a success he was invited back in 1946, making him one of the few artists to make an appearance in 2 consecutive Royal Variety performances. Syd got a big break in 1948 also when he topped the bill at the London Palladium, replacing Hollywood legend Mickey Rooney. And Mickey told me he saw him actually perform and thought he was simply brilliant. Another great star that needs a quick mention is super magician Paul Daniels. He had huge success at the Prince of Wales with his own show running for over 2 years called It's Magic, and of course enjoyed phenomenal success also on BBC TV with his quiz shows and of course his traditional magic shows. Musicals fared very well at the Prince of Wales Theatre, and none more so than a brilliant new musical way back in late 1989 from Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber. Aspects of Love, though, had a huge star in its cast, none other than former 007 himself, Sir Roger Moore, aka James Bond. Sir Roger told me in an exclusive interview that he decided to take on a brand new challenge, and when approached by Lloyd Webber thought this was a good idea. However, he decided before opening that it wasn't necessarily the role for him, claiming that he said he felt rather uncomfortable learning to sing with a big orchestra. Now, since then, some footage has emerged of Sir Roger, and let me tell you, he had a brilliant singing tenor voice and would have been wonderful in the role, but as he said, he would have liked to have seen the challenge through, but had too many other things going on in his life at that particular time. Aspects of Love, though, at the Prince of Wales did create another huge star, Michael Ball, who managed to score a top 5 hit with virtually the theme tune from the song Love Changes Everything, even appearing on Top of the Pops, and creating Michael to be the musical superstar that we know and love today. Michael himself said, though, that he couldn't quite believe the way it took off, but it really was all down to the fact that Michael was very good looking, brilliant dimples, a winning smile, floppy hair, and of course he was only kept off the top spot by another 80s heartthrob, none other than Jason Donovan. A real superstar came in the early 90s to the Prince of Wales, none other than the Copacabana man himself, the wonderful Mr. Barry Manilow, who opened his debut musical at the theatre to not brilliant critics. But as ever, it was the fans that got behind Barry and made the show a pure delight. It starred a brand newcomer called Nicola Dawn and of course the irrepressible and brilliant Mr. Gary Wilmot, which ran for great success for over 18 months. Now, one of my all-time favourite comedians just has to be Sir Norman Wisdom, and Norman had a huge success here, and as you'll see from this little short memory, He was a phenomenal success, not just here at the Prince of Wales, but round the corner also at all the big cinemas who were showing Norman's films, thanks to the fact that by this point he was becoming a top-line star for Rank Film Organisation. Norman Wisdom was a great family friend and one of my all-time favourite comics. Norman, though, got a very big break at the Prince of Wales Theatre when he opened in Paris to Piccadilly on the 12th of April 1952. Now, this was Norman's first West End solo outing and it was a huge success. Of course, the following year he would also enjoy movie success thanks to all those Pinewood movies that became so popular throughout the 50s. But on this particular stint at the Prince of Wales, his comedy heroes came in to see him, none other than Laurel and Hardy themselves, and they thoroughly enjoyed the show. They sat in the audience and laughed and applauded along with the rest of the full house. Norman told me, though, he couldn't quite believe his comedy heroes had come to see him, and they told him that he was as good in their eyes as Norman's own comedy hero, our very own Charlie Chaplin. Norman himself loved to tell you so many showbiz stories. He really was one of our all-time greats, and as he told me, every time he went past the Prince of Wales, he always thanked it because that particular theatre was the one that he felt got his very first big theatrical break. Now this, to me, is the most exciting part of the theatre, the stage door. This is the stage door of Prince of Wales. And what's exciting, really, when you think about it, is all the famous stars that have actually walked through that stage door, from the Beatles, Burt Bacharach, Marlene Dietrich. Even I have appeared on this particular stage quite a few times. Oh yes, but that was possibly another life and time. But, as I say, if you get a chance to come down this particular street, just imagine everybody, the big cars pulling up with all the stars getting out, you know, from Tommy Cooper, Syd Field, all your favourites. So Norman Wisdom, well actually Norman didn't bother with a car. Apparently he walked all the way around Leicester Square, letting people know, of course, that he was about to arrive. But this is the brilliant and one of my favourite spots in London to come out and soak up a true atmosphere of showbiz, the stage door at the Prince of Wales. Now our next guest is a real Hollywood superstar, Mr. Buddy Greco, who I got to know very well. What's interesting with Buddy is he really could do so many things, play the piano, sing, do comedy, and of course he was part of the infamous Rat Pack alongside Peter Lawford and Frank Sinatra. He also had the sad sort of connection of being in the last pictures ever of Marilyn Monroe in, of course, July 1962. But by 1963 he was back in London starring at that year's Royal Variety performance from the Prince of Wales Theatre and really making a huge success of it. Buddy told me, though, that he'd never really seen or appeared in a show quite like it. Let's not forget it had Hollywood superstar Marlene Dietrich alongside the pop group of the moment, the Beatles. But he told me he couldn't quite believe it when Pinky and Perky came onto the stage, you do remember Pinky and Perky, of course, and virtually stole the show. He said when he looked towards the royal box, even all the royals were laughing away and thoroughly enjoying it. Now this is before he went on stage, so he said it rather unnerved him to be wondering if he could create the same success. That he did, and we welcome Buddy Greco to our shores for many years to come. Thank you so much for watching our latest film, of course celebrating all the wonders that are the Prince of Wales in London's Leicester Square. Now if you've enjoyed the movie, can I please ask you to share it with all your friends? It's quite simple, the share button, just say I'm sending it to you. Everybody of course will thank you for wanting to reminisce with some of our brilliant stars. And shall we just thank our cast, Mae West, the Beatles, Sir Norman Wisdom, Benny Hill, Syd Field, Paul Daniels and of course Buddy Greco. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Neil Sean. I'll see you next time.